You know what you're listening to?
Is that a trick question?
It's the I Still Love This Game podcast with your host, Matthew Damian.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
Good morning and welcome to the episode 117 of the I Still Love This Game podcast. Now, I know you've probably seen the title, and if you listened to yesterday's episode where I said, that's it, I'm not going to be talking about the Lakers or LeBron pretty much for the rest of the season now. You probably think, what the hell is this? You know, you can't even go one day without talking about LeBron. Well, I did not anticipate the feedback that I got from yesterday's episode, where I was talking about LeBron passing Jordan, and I was talking about LeBron not being really treated as a or being respected, by the genuine Laker fans out there. And I was talking about the love and admiration that Laker fans and loyalty Laker fans still have towards Kobe Bryant. So when I woke up this morning, this episode was released yesterday. And of course, I encourage you to go have a listen to that episode so you can apply full context to what I'm about to say. Because this morning, when I woke up, I had over 150 comments, direct messages, emails, you name it. Any way people could get in touch with me about that episode, they were getting in touch with me. In text messages from people that are close to me as well. Over 150. And there was no middle ground. It was either people very passionately agreed with what I was saying, or very passionately disagreed or were offended that I would even bring up Kobe Bryant in the same breath as Mr. LeBron James. So I figured, let's get this out of the way, because if I don't address this, it will be lingering, and I'll probably forget to do it in the off-season. And it is still my show, so I still get to make the calls as to what I'm going to be talking about. So Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. This argument, it's an odd argument. Let me just start with that. It's a very odd argument because it shouldn't be an argument at all. LeBron should have made the finals in 2009 and 2010, and we would have seen a decisive victor in that, one way or the other. We would have seen Jordan versus Drexler. We would have seen that moment. Instead, we didn't see it, which is incredibly frustrating as a basketball fan. And it's not Kobe's fault that LeBron didn't make it. It's LeBron's fault that LeBron didn't make it. Now, you can blame his teammates if you want, but as we're going to get into this episode, if we're going to apply that kind of standard, if we're going to allow excuses like that to be made, they must be made on the other side of the spectrum as well. So, the reason... This is a difficult question to answer, because it is subjective. I mean, we can talk about the resumes. Well, let's talk about the resumes. Kobe has 5 rings. LeBron has 3. Kobe has 1 MVP award. It should be 2. Ironically, the one that he did win should have gone to LeBron. But the 2 seasons prior to that, it should have been Kobe. Kobe has 2 Finals MVP awards. LeBron has 3 of those. Kobe is 3rd on the all-time scoring list. LeBron is now 4th. Kobe is a 15-time All-NBA player. LeBron James is what? He's a 14-time, I think. 15. He may be 15-time as well. In terms of all defensive teams, Kobe is 12 times all defensive, 9-time his first team. I don't know what LeBron's numbers are. Let me just pull that up really quickly. LeBron James is a 5-time all defensive team member. So, and he's also all defensive team member, second team member once. So, in terms of that, Kobe annihilates him from that regard. So, but they've balanced each other out. Kobe is a 2-time scoring champion. LeBron won that award once. Kobe is a 2-time gold medalist, as is LeBron, but LeBron has 2 bronze medalists to his name, which is a massive disappointment when you consider the talent level going up against international competition. And Kobe has both of his numbers retired by the Lakers. I would be surprised if we don't see LeBron's jersey retired in both Miami, and of course it's going to go up in Cleveland as well. So, as I was saying, these are very accomplished players in the scheme of things, and that's why I found it so fascinating that people would think that it's an insult to LeBron that he's actually compared to, especially when you consider that their careers lined up pretty well. Well, we're not talking about a 30-year gap here. We're not comparing Kareem to Anthony Davis. We're not comparing Michael Jordan to James Harden. They actually played against each other. They didn't meet in the playoffs. They should have, as I said before, but we didn't see that. So here's the case that I wanted to make for Kobe. Because to me, I am set on this. There's not a whole lot that you can actually do to convince me otherwise. I am with Kobe Bryant on this, and it's not because I'm a fan of his or anything of that nature. I'm talking from a pure basketball sense, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit further as we get into this episode. But when it comes down to it, you talk about how the NBA has evolved from a talent standpoint. And of course, you talk about the George Michans in the early years of the NBA, right? George Mikan was the first superstar the NBA ever had. Ironically, he played for the Lakers, but they weren't the Los Angeles Lakers, they were the Minneapolis Lakers. And they won 5 championships. Then it went to Bill Russell. And then it went to Bill Russell versus Wilt Chamberlain. And that really revolutionized the game. It modernized the game of basketball. And really, when you look at it from that standpoint, it also brought in the first great debate, which has not been settled amongst fans. And is it individual accomplishment? How do you determine the greatest player? Who's better? Is it individual accomplishments or is it winning? Now, the easy answer to that is winning, because when you look at this debate, Wilt Chamberlain patterned his game after Bill Russell. And what I mean by that is Wilt Chamberlain came in setting all kinds of scoring records, but he realized he wasn't as good as Bill Russell because Bill Russell kept... And the debate was a passionate one, but what we saw from Wilt Chamberlain was Wilt Chamberlain actually styled his game more like Bill Russell so he could win more. He's been on record saying that. So that essentially ended the argument because the strategy worked for Wilt. Wilt became a champion. He was able to be the catalyst in Philadelphia, breaking up the championship run of the Celtics, and he was able to win in 72 as well. So that should be an admission right there that winning is more valuable than individual accomplishments, at least to the players, right? So that's what I mean by Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain actually modernizing the game. Then in the 70s, we saw Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, we saw Dr. J, and we saw the evolution of basketball from that standpoint. Then in the 80s, we saw Magic and Larry Bird. They took the game to new heights with their dedication to winning and how they made their teammates better. Michael Jordan then took it to a whole new level by doing all of the above, but combining it with Dr. J. So you had the intensity of Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and their will to win, along with the athleticism of a Julius Erving. So we saw a progression from George Mikan all the way up to Michael Jordan in how the game was evolving and was getting better and better and better with every single generation. That brings us to the generation following Jordan. And the generation following Jordan, it was natural to assume, if you're a basketball fan, that the game was going to continue to evolve and get better. But it didn't. And this is like Kobe Bryant, to me, you can make an argument for him being a top 5 player of all time. Hell, you can make an argument for him being better than anyone else in the game of basketball except for Jordan, because he is a carbon copy of Jordan. He's not as good when you look at the accomplishments, but in terms of the eye test, there's not much separating him and Jordan. I mean, there are small nuances, but they are very similar. But because he's a carbon copy, you have to then refer to the accomplishments, you have to refer to the awards and the championships and the statistics, and Jordan beats him in all those regards. So that's the only guy you cannot compare him to. Anyone else, from Bill Russell to LeBron James to Wilt to Shaq to Tim Duncan to Magic and Larry, all those players, you can make an argument for Kobe being better than them. Which brings us back to the point I was going to get to, however, is the pressure that was placed on Kobe's shoulders. So we didn't know that Kobe was going to be the face of this generation. We really didn't. Because he came into the league as a high schooler, and that generation, we already had Shaq, we already had Tim Duncan. Those guys looked primed for it. We also had guys like Kevin Garnett. It took them a long time to winning championships. But the early candidates for being the best of this generation was Shaq, who was Kobe's teammate, and Tim Duncan. Kobe didn't really become the face of this generation until after his third title. But keep in mind, as I said, he came into the league very young. He was 17 years old when he came into the league. He was 21, I believe, when he first won his first title. He was 23 when he had won his third title. And then we started paying attention to it. We started saying, well, hold on a second. Kobe could be the next evolution of Jordan here. Because based off that trajectory, at 23 and he already has 3 rings, my goodness. To put that in perspective, LeBron is 34 and he has 3 rings. That's insane. Larry Bird finished up with 3 rings. That once again is insane. Kobe had that at the age of 23. Once again, that's insane. So, based off that, people were thinking that, hey, Kobe Bryant is going to surpass Jordan. At least from the championship count. Because he's already got half of what Jordan had, and he's only 23 years old. But what happened was Kobe and Shaq, we saw that breakup. We saw the Lakers completely fall apart in the 2004 playoffs, in the finals, up against Ben Wallace, and Richard Hamilton, and Chauncey Billups, Rasheed Wallace, all those guys. We saw them fall apart. We saw Shaq get traded. And Kobe Bryant only, and I'm using air quotations when I say this, only finished up with 5 championships. Now, because Kobe only finished up with 5, that's considered a little bit of a disappointment, considering, I know it's incredible for me to say, saying that 5 championships is considered a disappointment, but he finished up with 5 championships, but that's disappointing because he had 3 when he was 23. Based off that trajectory, you would have thought he would have gotten much more than 5. And, of course, circumstances like Shaq being traded affected that, right? But the reality is, nobody had more pressure. Nobody faced more pressure than what Kobe Bryant did in NBA history. And what I mean by that is, imagine having the pressure. And to his credit, Kobe embraced this. Because you think about a guy like Vince Carter. Vince Carter was also considered a young face of the league in the early 2000s, and he couldn't handle that pressure at all. He wilted under that pressure. Kobe embraced that pressure. He embraced that challenge. You know, I can't emphasize this enough. That's a hell of a thing to ask of a basketball player. To not just duplicate what Jordan did, but to actually exceed what Jordan did. You cannot ask more out of an individual that's a basketball player than that. Jordan is the best player that's ever played, and the expectation was on Kobe to actually be better than him. And did he accomplish it? No. And you know why he didn't accomplish it? Because we didn't lower the bar. We've lowered the bar for LeBron. Imagine if we lowered the bar for Kobe. Imagine if we said, well, Kobe Bryant has been to more NBA finals than what Michael Jordan has. He's been to 7, Jordan went to 6. Now, you could actually make an argument for that being better, or not being better, but it would be more of a legitimate argument than LeBron's going to the finals 9 times. And I'll tell you why. The West was an absolute powerhouse of a conference when Kobe was making the NBA finals. There was many times when the lowest seed in the West was actually a 50-win team. We never saw that in the Eastern Conference. Not even close. To put that in perspective, when LeBron made the NBA Finals last season, and the Cavs were the 4th seed, they went up against the 5th seed at Indiana Pacers, and this was one of the better years for the Eastern Conference in terms of standings, if you wanted to compare them between the conferences. So they went up against the 5th seed at Pacers. The 5th seed at Pacers had 48 wins themselves. So on most years, out in the West, the number 8 seed was superior, at least from a wins-loss perspective, than what the 4th or 5th seed would be in the Eastern Conference. Look that up. Just go ahead and look it up, because I'm not going to bore the showdown by going through each year and how weak the Eastern Conference is. But by all means, go to basketballreference.com, go to ESPN.com, Go to wherever you need to go, land of basketball, wherever you need to go, and look it all up. So the point that I'm making is Kobe's, and that never gets brought up, which is just another example of how the bar was never lowered for Kobe. We never said, hey, Kobe Bryant has more points than Michael Jordan. Therefore, he's better than Michael Jordan. We never said that. All of a sudden, that's coming out again. That's rearing its head up. At any opportunity, LeBron James fans will come out of the woodworks and say, oh, he's better than Jordan because of this. Well, then if we're applying that logic, then hey, Kobe Bryant's better than LeBron James because he has more titles and he has more points scored. He has more all defensive team awards too. I mean, surely if that's the standard, then that's the standard. But it's not. It's inconsistent. But what it ultimately comes down to, and I've been very consistent with this, is when I'm judging players, I will say to myself, I'll ask myself, and this is the ultimate judge, is who would I prefer to be on my team? This is why I will say Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest center of all time. Because I can't possibly pick another center over the top of him and have the confidence that he could fit in to as many variables of a team as what Wilt could. So when it comes down to LeBron versus Kobe, the answer is quite simple. I look at these two guys, very, very talented players, obviously. But it comes down to the mentality of the entire situation. And when it comes to Kobe, he was a guy that actively sought out challenges for himself. Let's think back to 2004. Kobe Bryant already has 3 rings. He's now a free agent. They've just lost in the NBA Finals. Kobe Bryant went to Lakers management and he says, I want Shaq gone. Do you know why he wanted Shaq gone? Because he wanted to prove that he could win without Shaq. That is maybe one of the great challenge takers in NBA history. Let's look at LeBron James. LeBron James couldn't win a title in Cleveland the first go around. What did he do? He actively sought out Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and Pat Riley to make the road easier to an NBA championship. So just compare those two variables right there. And if I want to have the confidence in my guy being able to accomplish that goal, if I'm building a team, it's Kobe Bryant without question. Now, if you want to talk about what we've just seen this past season as further evidence of that, what did we see when Kobe Bryant, when he should have won the NBA MVP, in my opinion at least, in 2006 and 2007? He had a roster of Smoosh Parker, Lamar Odom, who was a good player, don't get me wrong, but not a great player, but Lamar Odom, Chris Mim, Kwame Brown. He dragged that team to the playoffs twice. What did we just see this past season from LeBron? He had a roster of Brandon Ingram. Lonzo Ball was injured, but they still had him for half of the season. You had Rondo, who played very well. Kuzma played very well. JaVale McGee played very well. And they've actually gone backwards. Let's keep that in mind, right? They've gone, well, I exaggerate a little. They haven't gone backwards, but right now, as of this podcast, as I'm recording it right now, they are in exactly the same situation as what they were this time last season, without LeBron James. So he has added nothing to this team. You give me a Kobe Bryant, even, I would dare to say, even a Kobe Bryant now, 3 or 4 years into retirement, you give me that Kobe Bryant right now, he'll at least give me 2 or 3 wins overall of an improvement. We've gotten nothing out of LeBron. It's gone backwards in that regard. Because when I say it's gone backwards, even though it's stagnated, the progression of these younger players alone should have seen an upward trajectory. The last 2 seasons, we've seen 9-win improvements from this team. Not this year. So that's the basic answer as to why I would go with Kobe over LeBron James. And that's not to say Kobe's a perfect player. Of course not. I would never say that. I wouldn't even say that Jordan's a perfect player. But when it comes down to it, and I think a lot of fans feel this way. And that's why we've seen the backlash towards LeBron. And it's not really, look, it's not even really a backlash towards LeBron himself. It's the narratives, it's the angles, it's the storylines that are associated with him that are so ridiculous. And it's actually quite insulting if you're a fan of the game of basketball to hear this stuff day in and day out. And I think a lot of it, when we look at it, I'm going to go a little bit off topic here, but I think that's why we saw such a genuine reaction when Kobe was leaving the game. That's why we saw other arenas, rivals. We saw Kobe Bryant getting MVP chants in Boston Garden. Think about that. If you know basketball, you know that Lakers and Celtics rivalry. What a rivalry that is. Friend of the podcast, Matt Hanley, diehard Laker fan, right? This is how deep this runs. I remember asking him if he was going to get NBA 2K9, and he flat out said no. I said, why? Why aren't you getting 2K9? He said, because the Celtic was on the cover. Kevin Garnett was on the cover. That's how deep that rivalry runs. And yet Kobe Bryant had the respect of that Boston Garden crowd, or not the Boston Garden, but the Boston crowd, that they would actually chant MVP for him. That's incredible when you think about it. Think about when he was in Detroit and he got this that huge opening intro. You think about every arena that he went to, San Antonio, Sacramento, they all cheered for him. Golden State, they all cheered for him. Those tribute videos from legends, it was amazing. And it culminated in what? It culminated in that final game where, let's put that in perspective. Both teams were out of the playoff hunt. It was the Lakers versus the Utah Jazz. That was a bigger deal to NBA fans, a much bigger deal, myself included, than what else was happening that night was the Golden State Warriors had 72 wins, and it was the final game of the regular season up against Memphis, and it was a close game because I caught the highlights of it later. Obviously, I didn't watch it live because I was watching the Lakers game. And the Golden State Warriors were, excuse me, I'm not sure if you can hear this banging in the background. I've got people working on an apartment next to me and it's been going on all morning. So I apologize for that, but that's what I'm competing with. But the Golden State Warriors were 72 wins, 72-9. If they won on the last game of the regular season, they would actually break the Bulls record. No one cared about it. I'll tell you why no one cared about it, because everyone's thoughts and focus was with Kobe Bryant's final game. Just think about that. Think about that for a second. History was about to be made in Oracle, and it was a close game, but no one cared. They just wanted to see Kobe one last time because he had the respect of basketball fans. So it's not just me saying that I've got more confidence in Kobe Bryant showing up because he's a challenge taker. Now you compare that to the reaction that LeBron just got at home, and going beyond surpassing Jordan in terms of all-time scoring. His own teammates didn't even care. That's how little confidence and respect that he garners. So it's not just me. I'm not crazy here by saying that I would prefer Kobe Bryant to LeBron James. The eye test is emphatic when it comes to this. So that's where I stand in it. And of course, if you disagree with it, let me know. If you want to argue it, believe me, you are welcome. If you are articulate and respectful enough to come on the show and are willing to engage in a rational debate, you're welcome to come on the show. I am inviting you to come on the show. But don't send me emails at 3 a.m, one sentences, calling me all kinds of names under the sun because you disagree with it. If you disagree with it and you think you're right, then come on the show. It's just that simple. But here's my points. You know my argument. I'm even giving you a 10-step head start if you want to debate this, because you know my ammunition here. So let's have it. Have at it. But don't blow my phone up again at 3 a.m, please. My goodness. Some of us have a life. Some of us have wives too that don't appreciate that as well. But that's where I stand on the Kobe and LeBron thing. I think it's absolutely an argument, and quite honestly, I think it's an emphatic victory for Kobe Bryant over LeBron James. And now, unless if somebody comes on the show, we can start the hiatus of LeBron James, and we can move beyond it, and we can start enjoying some real basketball. Speaking of which, last night, what a hell of a game that was between Oklahoma and Portland. That was getting to the stage of almost must-win territory for Oklahoma, because they were on a significant skid, but now they're back up to what, third in the conference. I think they're half a game ahead of Houston, and now obviously a full game ahead of Portland for that third spot, which will be significant because obviously the third spot means you will probably run into Denver in the second round, as opposed to running into Golden State in the second round. But if you have championship aspirations, you're going to have to go through Golden State anyway. So it may be completely irrelevant whether you face them in the second or third round. Anyway, that was a hell of a game. We're starting to see some better games. We're starting to see, finally, we're starting to see the intensity pick up. Usually the intensity picks up after Christmas. If you're an NBA fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. The first couple of months are usually, teams sleepwalking. They're not really, it's almost like a preseason level, a little bit higher intensity. But it doesn't take this long for teams to really get into intense basketball. We're finally starting to see it now, and I'm happy. But thanks for tuning in again, guys. Episode 117 in the books. Wow, we're really rolling ahead. We've had like 20 episodes in a month and a half. But once again, thank you guys. And next week, as I said in the last episode, next week we'll have Brian Grant on the show. And obviously I'll be keeping an eye on some what's going on in the NBA, and we'll have some historical topics coming up too. So thanks, guys. And I appreciate you guys checking in, and take care.